Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: in Ukraine's northeast, fears rise of second Russian occupation. Putin's latest challenge? Protesting military wives. Emergency declared in San Diego as wettest January day on record brings widespread flooding. The Pentagon has no more money for Ukraine as it hosts a meeting of 50 allies on support for Kyiv. Russia launches missile strike on Kyiv, says Ukraine's military. In Ukraine's northeast, fears rise of second Russian occupation. Washington Post. Residents of Kupiansk in northeast Ukraine who were liberated from Russian occupation a year ago are now fearing a second occupation and speaking their fears aloud. For months, Russia has been attacking Kupiansk and its surrounding area, prompting Ukraine to urge civilians to evacuate. Russia has recently taken control of the small settlement of Krokmaln, which has increased fears that Ukrainian troops are preparing to surrender more ground. Ukraine is beefing up its defenses, but the recent Russian offensive is a sign that Russia is on the offensive. Civilians are required to stop in Shevchenkov to be interviewed by police and intelligence officers, who check their phones and investigate any potential ties to Russian troops. Despite evacuation orders, fewer than a dozen people pass through the town each day. In the past month, there has been an increase in artillery, bombs and guided missiles in and around Kupiansk. Residents are skeptical about Ukrainian forces ceding the city, and many are more scared of a second occupation than direct shelling. Putin's latest challenge? Protesting military wives. BBC. A group of women in Russia, calling themselves the Way Home, are publicly criticizing the government's decision to mobilize 300,000 reservists for the war in Ukraine. The women, who met via social media, have differing views on the war but believe that the mobilized men have done their fair share of fighting and should be allowed to return home. The women have faced criticism from both opponents of the war and supporters of the Kremlin. One MP claimed that the call for demobilization was the work of enemies, suggesting that the Ukrainian military or the CIA was behind it. The women want to prevent a second wave of mobilization and are calling for all Russian citizens to understand that they could be affected by the conflict. President Putin has previously ruled out a second wave of mobilization, stating that there was no need for it. However, the situation could change. The women have started a tradition of laying flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow every Saturday to raise awareness and call for the return of their loved ones. Emergency declared in San Diego as wettest January day on record brings widespread flooding. Yahoo! San Diego, California, experienced its wettest January day on record after a Pacific storm hit the U.S. West Coast. The city experienced flash floods and residents had to be rescued from apartment complexes as standing water surrounded their homes. Mayor Todd Gloria declared a state of emergency and urged residents and visitors to stay off the roads. The Pentagon has no more money for Ukraine as it hosts a meeting of 50 allies on support for Kyiv. Associated Press. The United States will not be able to provide further military aid to Ukraine due to a lack of funds. The U.S. Defense Secretary established an international group to support Ukraine in April 2022, but the U.S. has exhausted its resources and Congress has yet to approve more funds. The U.S. has provided over $44.2 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since Russia invaded in February 2022, but the money has run out. In the meantime, the U.S. is relying on its allies to continue providing assistance to Ukraine. The U.S. and its partners are also continuing to train Ukrainian forces. Russia launches missile strike on Kyiv, says Ukraine's military. Yahoo! Russia has launched a missile strike on Kyiv and the surrounding region, according to a Ukrainian military official. The official urged residents to stay in shelters until the air raid alarm is lifted. The missile attack comes amid escalating tensions between Russia and Ukraine. Norman Jewison, filmmaker with lens on social issues, dies at 97. Washington Post. Norman Jewison, who became one of Hollywood's most eclectic directors, making all kinds of movies epic and intimate, farcical and melodramatic, while drawing signature performances from actors including Sidney Poitier in The Heat of the Night and Cher in Moonstruck, died January 20 at 97. His publicist, Jeff Sanderson, confirmed the death but did not provide further information. ADM probe highlights struggle to expand beyond commodity trading. Bloomberg. Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, has slashed its 2023 profit target and placed its CFO, Vikram Luthar, on administrative leave. The move comes amid an investigation into accounting practices at the company's nutrition unit, following a request for information from the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The scandal has thrown the spotlight on ADM's efforts to diversify its business and reduce its dependence on its legacy agricultural commodities trading business. ADM has focused on providing customers with products to help them change the formulation of processed food, such as reducing sugar content while preserving sweetness or altering its appearance. The company's nutrition business struggled with demand for changes in the formulation of products, including alternative protein used in veggie meats. In addition, increased soybeans processing capacity in the U.S. is boosting competition for ADM and threatening to hurt profits. ADM's shares plunged 24% on the news, wiping $8.8 billion from its market value. U.S. British forces strike new Houthi sites in Yemen. Washington Post. The U.S. and Britain have conducted another round of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, with support from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, and the Netherlands. The strikes, which targeted 8 locations including an underground storage facility and missile sites, aimed to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea, according to a joint statement from the nations involved. The U.S. has now conducted 8 rounds of strikes on Houthi targets since January 11. Canada's top employers for young people, 2024 winners. The Globe and Mail. Canada's top employers for young people, 2024, are focusing on creating workplaces that align with the values of Generation Z, who are expected to make up 30% of the workforce by 2030. Companies such as BlackBerry are attracting young talent by offering meaningful work that aligns with their values. Gen Z candidates are seeking organizations that support their career growth and offer opportunities for development. The younger generation also values work-life balance, flexibility, and company culture. Employers are recognizing the importance of addressing mental health and supporting the well-being of their young employees. Alan Bouchard, Director of People and Culture at Aboriginal People's Television Network, says Gen Z will leave an organization quickly if it does not meet their needs. The younger generation also has specific preferences for learning and development opportunities, such as online, interactive, and entertaining platforms. Is North Korea's leader actually considering war? BBC. North Korea experts have disagreed on whether the country's leader, Kim Jong-un, is preparing for war. 2 prominent analysts, Robert L. Carlin and Siegfried S. Hecker, believe that Kim has made a strategic decision to go to war. However, most analysts disagree with this theory, arguing that North Korea often acts out to bring Western powers to the table for dialogue. Furthermore, they believe that Kim's increased bluster does not necessarily indicate an imminent war but rather a more limited attack. While war may be unlikely due to the superior military capabilities of the US and South Korea, experts warn that a smaller action, such as shelling or attempted occupation of contested islands, could occur to test the South Koreans' limits. The article suggests that Kim's behavior may be aimed at stabilizing his regime and justifying missile spending at a time when there are reports of starvation across the country. By presenting South Korea as the enemy, Kim can resolve the cognitive dissonance at the heart of the North's view on South Korea and justify his continued crackdown on South Korean culture. However, experts argue that engaging with Kim is the best way to understand his intentions and reduce the risk of misjudgments and war. They believe that meeting with the leader of an enemy nation is a necessary means to achieve a goal and prevent war. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6th dimension. Today, we bring you a mix of news from around the world, covering topics ranging from international conflicts to cultural shifts. So, let's dive right in. In Ukraine's northeast, fears of a second Russian occupation are rising. The residents of Kupiansk, who were liberated from Russian occupation a year ago, are now worried that they may face a second occupation. Russia's recent offensive and the capture of the small settlement of Krokmaln have heightened these fears. Despite evacuation orders, only a few people are leaving the area each day. The situation is tense, and the civilians are more scared of a second occupation than direct shelling. Meanwhile, in Russia, a group of military wives known as the Way Home is publicly criticizing the government's decision to mobilize 300,000 reservists for the war in Ukraine. These women, who have differing views on the war, believe that the mobilized men have already done their fair share and should be allowed to return home. They are calling for all Russian citizens to understand that they could be affected by the conflict and are laying flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Moscow every Saturday to raise awareness. In San Diego, California, the city experienced its wettest January day on record, causing widespread flooding. The mayor declared a state of emergency and urged residents and visitors to stay off the roads. It seems like Mother Nature has been quite unpredictable lately. Moving on to the US's involvement in Ukraine, the Pentagon has announced that it has no more funds to provide military aid to the country. The US has exhausted its resources, and Congress has yet to approve more funds. However, the US and its allies are continuing to train Ukrainian forces. It's a challenging situation, but support is still being provided in other ways. Breaking news. Russia has launched a missile strike on Kyiv, according to Ukrainian military officials. The tensions between Russia and Ukraine continue to escalate, and the situation is becoming more dangerous. Let's hope for a peaceful resolution. In other news, Norman Jewison, the filmmaker known for his lens on social issues, has passed away at the age of 97. He was a versatile director and brought out memorable performances from actors like Sidney Poitier and Cher. May he rest in peace. Archer Daniels Midland, ADM, a prominent agricultural commodities trading company, is facing a tough time. The company has reduced its profit target for 2023 and is under investigation for its nutrition unit's accounting practices. This scandal has shed light on ADM's struggles to diversify its business and reduce its dependence on its legacy trading business. The company's shares have taken a hit, but let's see how they navigate through this storm. The US and Britain have conducted another round of strikes on Houthi targets in Yemen, with support from other nations. The aim is to de-escalate tensions and restore stability in the Red Sea. The situation in Yemen remains volatile, and international efforts are being made to address the conflict. Shifting our focus to Canada, the country has announced its top employers for young people for 2024. These employers are adapting their workplaces to align with the values of Generation Z, who will make up a significant portion of the workforce in the coming years. Companies like BlackBerry are attracting young talent by offering meaningful work and supporting career growth. Work-life balance, flexibility, and company culture are also important factors for the younger generation. Lastly, there are differing opinions on whether North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, is preparing for war. Some experts believe that Kim has made a strategic decision to go to war, while others argue that his actions are aimed at stabilizing his regime and justifying missile spending. Engaging with Kim and understanding his intentions is crucial to reducing the risk of misjudgments and war. And that's a wrap for today's news. Remember, your thoughts and opinions matter, so feel free to join the discussion and share your ideas. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Let me know. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.